Okay, so today we're going to be using, as always, I leave it open for you. I'm going to be using a 2B, which is a little darker so you guys could see my lines. You're welcome. I generally recommend starting with a 2H, a lighter, harder pencil if you have it. But also you could be working with charcoal if you're wanting to do that. Today, I'm going to save it for graphite. Next week, I'll be working with charcoal. So yes, I'm going to work my way up the pencils, and starting today with 2B, I'll probably go to a 4B and a 6B. But that's again because I need you guys to see the lines. If I were to work my 2H, they might be too light. So what I want to do here first is this. I wanted to show you just a quick. This might have taken me 5 minutes. So you've heard of sketching and thumbnailing, I hope. So we're going to try to do that very quickly on a separate sheet of paper, not your main, or if you're working on a sketchbook, you could do it as well. So notice that I'm working on a loose separate sheet of paper here. What I want to do is I want to get a full, I want to get to meet my subject. Hello, horse. What's your name? Not that kind of meeting. We're actually going to really go back to week 1, maybe week 2 a little bit, what we looked at in terms of structure. So what I want you to visualize first, and we're going to do a quick, I'm hoping to make this a 5, maybe a 10, less than 10 minute sketch. And it's going to be very fast. So we have a beautiful horse here. What I want you to see is this first. So once we begin to identify the major lines, I'm going to make them a little darker. Now, what you would want to do is obviously, if you're working with this scheme, with this plan, strategy, you're going to want to make these lines very light. That's what I was saying about my 2H. You probably wouldn't be able to see them here, and I just did. But that's how, and you could see them maybe there, right here on the close-up camera, where they're so much lighter. But that's what you want to do. You want to be able to make them as light as possible, where you actually have to come in really close, and they're there only for you. So this I'm looking as almost triangles, and I want to get a general sense of the angle. I've mentioned this before. If you're really good with angles, then you do that. But I use the hands of a clock. So I do this one. I visualize it at 12 o'clock. So I know this line here is not going to be 12 o'clock. It's more like 1 o'clock or 12:30. So I run it up that. And this one here, again, if this is 3 o'clock, I know it's not 3. I know it's not 12. So, it's almost, I put it almost at, what is that, 1:30? So it's almost a 45 degree. And I'm going to begin to get more of a sense of these angles. And like I said, I want to make this very quick. And I'm going to see all these little triangular relationships. As I said, I'm making these way darker than I usually would, just so you could see them. I didn't round this up because it's part of that triangle. I went a little bit above here, and then I'm going to do the final one up back here. But notice how easy, if we get familiar with the foundation, our structure of our subject, I could take this just one step further. I could begin to see the lines within. So down here, I see a little curvature that becomes, I remember from that bone structure session that I can have a big jaw here with tons of muscle. I'm not focusing at all in any details, but I begin to squint and close my eyes, and I begin to see some of the major features in terms of light and dark. But obviously, the one I really want to find where it goes first is going to be this one. So when I triangulate the position, I know if this is my jaw here, so I'm looking at this line. I know the eye is not down here. I know it's higher than that. I know because of this ear, the tip of it, it's not over here. It's further in. And I know that is it right in the middle or just a little bit past my ears? So as I make these relationships and decisions, I'm going to find it right about here. And I'm just, again, going to sketch it in as a simple, very simplified shape, which is almost like, it's not necessarily a circle, but just somewhat of a, let's call it like a lemon shape, not an egg. I want to do something because it's kind of really troubling me here. This super, super dark line that I had to start with, which was this one. So I want to soften it up. And there we go. So already what we have here, and notice that I'm using the eraser to get rid of some of these darker lines here, which you should have made a lot lighter to begin with. But what I want to do next is this. I want to take you from this structure, and this is what we're going to be focused on mostly today. And I want you to see it like this. So we have, this is our reference. Could you bring yourself to see this like this? So what are we looking at here? I did this. There's a way you go to Photoshop and you just look at the lights. This is not a black and white, by the way. Obviously, it is in black and white, but it's not necessarily a black and white or desaturated version of this. What I did is I pumped up the lights and the shadows. So, really quickly, what I want to begin to do here is, and I hope you follow me here, I want to kind of, within my structure already, I want to kind of map out the light. I'm doing this very loosely because we're going to do this seriously, step by step and a little slower. But what I want to do is I want to focus. And right now I'm kind of mapping out the light. And in a way, at the same time, just separating it from the shadows. And once I have somewhat of a map, I have some little shadows right in here. I have a big feature, we call that. That's not necessarily light or shadow. It's just that white stripe, very strong characteristic of our subject. But notice with the little map of lines that I did here, and they're very subtle. There's some back here. With this, I could just take, and I'm going to switch over to a darker pencil here so you could see it. I could easily go from, and I'm not necessarily going to do it this way, but I could begin to color it in, let's call it, where we see one area that it's way darker here. One that's way darker here. A little bit consistent with darkness down here. And a little bit less dark, but also shadows in the middle here. So that's going to be our job today. We're going to really work with how light is interacting with our subject. I'm going to give it just a little more right in here. And notice that at no point did I try to add detail, but I'm almost there. And let's say this took us 10 minutes. So that is a quick 10-minute sketch. What it is really a study to get more and more familiar with what we're about to do. So now when I begin my actual drawing, oh, been there, done that kind of sense. Got it? One last thing I want to show you here. So when I'm working with my subject, I'm going to be working with rendering lines and shadows. So if I'm looking at this form here, and I see that the light is falling straight down here, I see this a little bit straighter. So I'm going to kind of begin to make it into volumes and cubes where the light is coming right into here. But here I have a little bit of shadow. And here it's rounding underneath. So when we have a form that it's like this, I want to make sure my lines kind of follow the direction of that form. So I don't want to make them going across this way or up and down this way here. What I want to do is shape them, especially with something like this, which also has hair direction, because all these little parts of our horse today are going to have the bone structure, the muscle structure, the light, what it's doing to our subject, but most importantly, that hair as well, the hair directions. So whether you put your lines like this or like this is going to make a huge difference, especially here, for example. So here's a great example. If I were to do my lines straight down like this, I could make it work, but it's going to be a different kind of drawing. Now, if I round them like I know the muscle rounds, or here as they come from above towards, just like the shape of the muscle, it's going to be much better and much more realistic than if I just do lines in kind of a different direction than it's supposed to be.